Good afternoon, YWCA viewers. This is Series 1, Episode 17 of The Butterfly Effect, which is sponsored by Club 1888, a YWCA volunteer program. This is an empowerment series where volunteer hosts interview inspiring women in our community, and today we have Heather Hutchison. Hi, Heather.
Hi. Happy to be here.
Nice to have you in this virtual space.
Yeah.
I guess we wanted to talk, just to start, to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are in our community.
Sure. I am born and bred in Schenectady, grew up here, and moved away, for college, post-college years, for a little while, lived in the Boulder, Colorado area, worked in publishing and then got my art therapy degree out there. And then when my husband and I were ready to start a family, we decided to move back to Schenectady to be closer to family. So we've been back here for about 14 years now, which is kind of crazy how time has flown by. I've always, it was clear when we were going to move back to the East Coast that we definitely wanted to make a life back in the Schenectady area. It's always been home. And I think, my parents have always been very active in the community. So I think they instilled that at a very young age to me. And so, yeah, moving back to Schenectady was a very, very natural fit. So that's the 10-second bio.
I know right now you are, I look like the co-founder and executive director of Create Community Studios. That seems to be your main role. Tell us a little bit more about the studio, what you guys do there.
Sure. So 4 years ago, I co-founded Create Community Studios with a couple other art therapists and an art educator. After moving back to the capital region, I was working with some various nonprofits, doing art classes, and then started a private practice as an art therapist. So that's my clinical training. And we felt like there was a kind of a hole in the capital region in terms of the expressive arts therapies and art therapy. And I kind of kept getting requests for doing in-services, providing art therapy to different agencies, and I couldn't do it by myself. Hence, kind of banding with my co-founders. So we opened a studio over on State Street in Schenectady, and then up in Saratoga, we also have a studio up there. That's where my co-founders are based. And we're really focused on the expressive arts therapy. And that means that we're really focused more on the process of art versus the product. So a lot of times we're going to an art class and we're working on technique. And a lot of people have this like inner critic around making art, that they're either good at it or not good at it, that it's an innate talent, and it's not. We're getting a few little technical glitches here, so I guess I'll keep talking. So the expressive arts are, and especially being based in the expressive arts therapies, we're really focused on how everyone is innately creative, and that we all have this creative spirit to ourselves, and it all expresses ourselves differently for each person. And we're still having some technical issues here. So that's really what Create is about, is tapping into our own creative expression, and then also outreach into the community. So we work with a lot of other nonprofits like the YW. We're excited to partner with them for the Inspiring Women Project, the art exhibition that just ended. And we do a lot of work with the libraries in both Schenectady and Saratoga, lots of other area nonprofits that are out in the community. So that's kind of our bent. You probably missed the spiel, Tricia.
I only lost you there for a little bit, I
Okay.
think. I really love the idea of it being about the process of art rather than the product of art.
Yeah.
Because you're right, so many of us have that inner art critic. I know I do.
Yeah, I think,
Great to hear
a
you
lot of times and it just goes to our culture, right? Like that a lot of times we're trained that we need to have this output, right? It's not just in the creative pursuits, but that, museums are wonderful and we get to see so many different masters and of art and people who've trained for years, and they've trained for years. Like the stuff that hangs in museums are things that people worked on for decades and refining their skill. And it doesn't mean that they were able to just paint like what you see on the wall just right off the bat. So I think a lot of times people come into an art class thinking they're going to master it just like that. And there's a lot of training that goes into making things look a certain way. So that's why we really like to get people to focus a little more on just expressing ourselves for expression's sake and tapping into kind of like our inner child and just playing with art materials. Like we get used to not playing anymore as we become adults. And we kind of lose that aspect of ourselves. So that's what we try and get back. So, wow, we're riddled with technical difficulties today.
about that.
Okay.
Gosh, I'm trying. Another question we really ask you. I know it sounds like you have a lot of background in serving your community. I know you said your parents really emphasized that. But I'm wondering who inspired you when you were younger?
That's a tricky question. In terms of super young years, I'm not really sure. Definitely, I had some wonderful teachers along the way. Wonderful art teachers in high school at Lytton / now Schenectady High, who really inspired me to continue my creative pursuits, and that's what led me to majoring in art in college. And again, like just some amazing art professors in college. So there isn't just one person that I would say was a mentor or inspired me. It's really been a lot of people along the way, and I do have to say most of them have been women. I've been blessed with some really amazing women mentors, both professionally and in terms of friendships and academic pursuits as well. What's that?
I'm so sorry. My internet went out again.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear you. I'm very sorry. I watched it too. The last thing I heard was when I asked you about, who inspired you when you were young.
Yeah. So the summary of that is lots of people along the way. Teachers, professors, amazing mentor bosses and professions, both pre-art therapy and once I pursued my graduate degree as well. So
remind me, what's your graduate degree in?
So my degree is in counseling psychology with a concentration in art therapy. So in New York State, that means, because I got my degree in Colorado where we were living at the time. And then in New York State, I'm a licensed creative arts therapist.
Thanks. That was so cool to hear that. I haven't heard of that profession before as a licensed creative arts therapist. Yep, that's fascinating.
There's a fair amount of us around. We're growing
a lot of them
in
working with you.
Yeah.
At Creed. And did you have a mentor growing up or in your transition?
Yeah, so I think that's what I was saying when you cut out again, and you cut out again. There hasn't been any one person. I think it's really this collective of women, and even in forming Create, my co-founders are women too. I think that as women, we tend to lift each other up and really try and promote each other and each other's endeavors. So there isn't any one person who was a mentor. It has really been lots of people along the way. You keep cutting out about mentors.
I heard part of that. I heard part of that.
Where should we go from
I know
here?
you mentioned like lifting each other up.
Yeah, just community of women, basically. No one mentor in particular. Lots of people along the way.
Great to hear about women lifting each other up. I'm glad to hear it. And how does your identity as a woman, play any role in your industry or in your work, if it does?
Yeah, especially in the art therapy profession, maybe less so in counseling or psychology, but art therapy especially tends to be a pretty woman-dominated field. My graduate program was, I think there were like 12 or 15 of us in my program, and there was one man. And I think, I don't know if it's the combination of the arts, as when you look in a lot of artistic industries, they tend to be a lot of women. So I don't know if it's that combination of women and psychology. But I do feel that, in my training, and when I worked in community mental health, especially postgraduate too, it was a lot of women working in that field. And I have to think that it has to do a lot with, as women, we tend to be caregivers and want to help people, and kind of, again, back to lifting each other up. I think in general, women tend to have a lot of those qualities. So in my industry, it does seem like there's definitely a lot of women. I feel very fortunate in that respect.
Doing a lot of great work together.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I know it sounds like you've had quite a long career in this bar, and it's still continuing. So with that in mind, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
It's funny. I was thinking back to actually like pre-21, so high school. My best friend and I kind of used to joke about opening a business together, and my part of it would have been the art gallery. And so I didn't open an art gallery, I opened an art studio. And at 21, I was not working in counseling. I was working in the publishing field, and kind of just getting my feet wet in terms of my professional self and professional identity. And did love what I was doing at the time. So I don't know that I would have necessarily had any specific advice to myself at 21. It was kind of later in my 20s when I kept, kind of questioning what I wanted to do further, as it became clear that publishing wasn't the career that I wanted to stay in for the rest of my life. So I don't think there was really any one piece of advice, but more that pursuit of passion. I think we all really can find places in our lives where we really find a source of passion, and whether it's our career or whether it's hobbies, or stuff like that, that's always the stuff that kind of kept me going. And that's why I went back to grad school is I realized that my passion really was art and less, sort of more corporate America. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in
We're
that
getting some
regard,
comments.
do you want?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want other women to know anything? Like, what would you advise other women or want them to know going into the world and finding their passions like you did?
I think asking a lot of questions, not being afraid to seek out other people, especially in the professional world, not being afraid to ask other people about their field, what has been a struggle along the way. I remember, it was probably in some sort of corporate training years ago, like talk about informational interviews, and it made it seem so like formal. And I remember when I moved back to the capital region, I didn't really know anyone in the mental health field or art. And so I did kind of draw on the network, my family network. And, my mom had lots of suggestions of people I should talk to. And I just said, hey, could we meet for coffee? I would like to hear about your experience and this and that. And I think just, continuing to have conversations, not being afraid to ask questions, and not being afraid to like speak your mind about things. I think sometimes we don't tell people what our true opinions are, and being able to just have true and honest conversations really leads to real collaboration and change in our communities.
That's so important. And I know you mentioned hobbies and passions are so important. And with that in mind, I'm wondering if you have other hobbies, big hobbies or interests in your life besides art and art therapy.
Yeah, so definitely art. I get asked a lot if I've been making art myself. A lot of the art I make is with clients or in groups that I'm leading. So sometimes I don't have a lot of time to make art myself. But that's definitely, I consider myself a painting. That's definitely my passion. And when I get more time, that's definitely my go-to. I love being out in nature, love hiking, spending time with my kids outside, all that good family bonding stuff that we're all getting a lot of these days. And we lost Patricia again. So we got some chats in the comments saying that it's just reminding us that it's April Fool's Day. So it is April Fool's Day, and I'm not sure what else I should talk about. Carrie, behind the scenes, maybe let us know.
We were on a good roll there.
We were on for like a good 5 minutes there. I did mention it's April Fool's Day.
Yeah, it was like a good almost 10 minutes. We were going there. Yeah, that must be the reason. Well, I'm wondering as well, do you have a unique, yeah.
Do you have
any unique talent or a unique talent or something very unique about you? I'm always curious. Oftentimes I find creative people tend to have some very unique traits and talents.
I can't think of anything that's really like off the wall or odd. I consider myself to be a pretty like average kind of person. So I can't think of anything really off.
Everybody's got something
unique. Yeah, I mean, other than what I already kind of talked about. I love cooking too. Cooking, painting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's also very creative. That makes sense.
Yes, yes.
And I know you
Definitely doing
mentioned you've gotten a
lot
lot
more
of,
cooking these days than before COVID.
yeah, right. You mentioned you have had a lot of mentors over the years. You've spoken with a lot of people. So, what's the best advice you've ever received, if you can even pick one? I mean, you've got a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question a little bit in advance, and I'm not really sure, again, that I can pinpoint it to one piece of advice. I think it's really been more like collaboration in terms of like talking to one person and they're like, oh, so if you're interested in this, you really should talk to this person. And that kind of like chain effect of 6 degrees of separation, that we're all really a big community here. And yes, there's lots of issues in our community that we're working to solve, but I can't think of really like an inspirational piece of advice that really has stuck with me through the years. It's more just more general, just general general collaboration, I guess, is what it comes down to. Yeah.
Have a favorite piece of art?
I do. I have many favorites. As you can see from the sunflower behind me, that I'm a big Georgia O'Keeffe fan, and actually, my art teacher in high school introduced me to Georgia O'Keeffe, and she really stuck with me as an artist. So that's sort of my go-to when I paint. Is I paint a lot of like close-ups of flowers, of plants, and I just absolutely love her abstract landscapes, where you look at it and it could be a landscape, it could be a person, it could be like she takes little snippets of nature and makes them into something else that you may just like walk by and not notice on a day. So Georgia O'Keeffe. I'm also a big Monet fan, big fan of the Impressionists as well. Giverny in France, Monet's home is probably my favorite place in the world. I hope to get back there someday.
I'm sure eventually that will be a possibility,
Yeah.
and I hope you get to.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for talking with us today, Heather. And before we separate here, I just want to ask you if there's anything you wanted to say to our guests, our listeners, that I didn't ask you.
That's a good question, I guess. Please check out our website. I'll give a little pitch for Create. Check out our website at createcommunitystudios.org. We've got lots of community events coming up. We're really excited for the warmer weather and being able to do some things outside again and be involved in some community projects. So I guess that would be my leaving bit. It's a little plug for Create. So.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. And please, everyone who's listening, you can check in every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. We have different hosts and guests. And otherwise, thank you so much, Heather. So nice to virtually meet you and talk with you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was nice to share a conversation.